Here we go. Welcome to our episode this week of Guardians and Gladiators. I'm your host, Lauzie, and always with me is my good friend D. How you doing?
Wouldn't rather be anywhere else in the world. Lauzie, this is awesome. I'm so glad to be back for another episode. And I think we're going on a road trip, aren't we?
We're going on a road trip. We're going to head down the 401 to Toronto and then swing by the 400 quickly to stop in Orillia today.
Nice. I love it. So as much as we love London, and we're not taking away from them, and we haven't run out of people to speak to from London, don't worry. We got lots of time to speak to the rest of you, and we'll be doing that. But we're going to just head down and speak with a few people and kind of check out what's happening with Special Olympics in the rest of the province. Not only our original Special Olympics programs and athletes, but we're also going to find out a little bit more about the youth games that are happening in all the schools around us and be able to get kind of how far they've come in a short period of time. So I'm excited to hear about that. Kirsten Bobbie from Special Olympics Ontario is going to be joining us to speak a little bit more on that. But coming up right after this break is going to be our first guest from Orillia, Mr. Stephen Graham. So we'll be back right after this with Stephen.
Welcome back to Guardians and Gladiators. For today's episode, our first guest is from Orillia. Welcome to the show, Stephen Graham.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Stephen, how are you?
Good, Derek. Sorry, apologize, Derek.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Chris was the one talking to you, so we'll get through both of us here. So how are things, Stephen? How are things going with you?
I'm good, Derek. Thank you. Obviously, I did the Guardian run in OPP a couple weeks ago, and then just keeps on working.
Good. Yeah, the Guardians run. It was a cool, wet morning, wasn't it?
Real wet.
But it was amazing how many people they still had turnout for that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was amazing. It was over 500.
Yeah, great. And then there was the online portion, and in total, we saw the amount sent out last week. They raised $90,000 for the Guardians run. So a shout out to all the people up with the torch run up in the Orillia area. They did a great job putting it on, and to all the volunteers that helped out, and people that sponsored everybody, and then people like yourself who came out and ran and on a bit of a miserable morning.
It was different.
When did you get started in Special Olympics, and what sport did you start at?
Thank you, Chris, for asking me that, Chris. I started in 1997, and I started actually in floor hockey. That was my main sport, and swimming as well.
And where have you gone from there? What are some of the other sports you've been involved in?
I've done track and athletics, the track and field. I've joined curling. I've done basketball, and my main sport is speed skating. I've gone to in 2006, I started basically getting higher up. Then I went to Boise 2009. I went to South Korea in 2013, and I went to Graz in 2017.
Wow. You're a world traveler, aren't you?
I am. Thank you.
I got this picture in my mind of you with a pair of speed skates tied together at the laces, hanging over your shoulder as you walk on all these airplanes. And
actually, that's the beginning on airplanes is harder with those skates than you ever think of. It's a little more challenging. It's almost sometimes it's very hard to get skates to move anywhere in the world.
Yeah, they're not small, are they?
No.
I understood you were part of the torch run in Abu Dhabi.
I was.
How was that?
That experience?
Yeah.
Totally amazing experience in every which way. The scenery, the people, like Derek was there with me. You got to see a whole new culture and what it takes behind the scenes, what Special Olympics does for the LTLT run. It was an amazing experience. I got the opportunity to learn what it takes behind the scenes to make our games possible, and it was just a warming heart feeling. Chris, thank you.
That's awesome.
It was some experience, wasn't it, Stephen? I remember.
It was.
I remember sitting in the lounge at the airport before we even left, and we had no idea what was ahead of us for the next 2 weeks, did we?
No, not at all. Like,
God.
and Chris, long days. It was
Yeah.
really long
Yeah,
days. Like, I
you're
mean,
not kidding. On a
we
bus,
started at 6
right?
o'clock in the morning, Chris, and some nights we didn't get done until almost 11 o'clock. But we did our job. We got people to recognize what Special Olympics is about, and then got them on board for the future games for the summer games, I think. Right,
Mhm.
Derek?
Yeah, for sure. I think what would be really cool from your perspective, having been to the World Games before as an athlete and competed, is we were there probably 10 days before any
Before.
athletes even showed up, weren't we?
Yeah, we
And
were there.
and you're right to see the behind the scenes on what leads up to it. And then as we were getting closer and closer, a week left, 6 days left, 5 days left, and then all of a sudden some athletes started showing up from around the world, right? The excitement started building and building, and those opening ceremonies. Oh my goodness.
That was it might. Hey, Kirsten, going to open ceremonies is an amazing experience, right?
Yeah.
From coming behind the torch, like Derek was saying, I think it was as much excitement going into the stadium as an LTO athlete, and as much as going as an athlete itself. It was just heartwarming experience. It was like mind blowing. It was just so cool, and how they did it for us as well. We stood around the whole stadium, and we went from side to side like a football stadium. We just kept going around. It was just neatest thing.
That's pretty cool.
So what did you, from your perspective, Stephen, seeing, because you spent 2 weeks with a bunch of law enforcement officers from around the world, right? So with 100 law enforcement officers for 2 weeks, what stuck out to you? What did you learn about how these law enforcement torture on people felt towards Special Olympics and the athletes?
Oh, very heartful, warmth. They cared for the athlete, all athletes. They stuck to every athlete needed something. They were right there, just like any other game. You needed some help. They were right there to give you the courage to keep doing what you need to do through these games, for the running and speaking. That was the biggest part too, helping when we needed to do a speech, an athlete to keep calm, cool, and enjoy the experience. And that was, for me, one of the highlights of the thing. Getting as much as I would say, when we say, they were saying all the the police officers say it's always about the athletes. Yes, but for my view, that 2 weeks, those police officers, as much as to be with it as much as I was more worried about helping keeping them going too, as well as they much as keeping me in line.
Yeah, I notice on social media, you still keep in contact with a lot of those law enforcement officers from around the whole world, right? Because on your team alone, you had people from everywhere, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I haven't been on as much right now because I've been busy doing everything. But I gotta get back on it.
Yeah, it's great. You were speaking about doing speeches and stuff, and what was kind of funny, Lauzie, was every time Stephen would do a speech at a certain stop, whatever city we were in or whatever emirate we were in would present him with a really nice artifact or a token from that was specific to that area or that city that meant something to them. And he got some incredible things. And there was one thing that he got that causes a little bit of a problem in the airport going home.
Oh, yes. The big box with the big, Chris, it looked like almost like a horse. That's what it looked like. It was like a horse it's like a gallop. Like, it was like I'm trying to say it. I'm trying to think. I'm a brain for Chris. Derek knows what I'm trying to say. It's like a horse that flies, and it had a very sharp beak, and that's what the problem was at the security. They thought that could use as a weapon.
So Stephen wanted to take it on the plane with him, obviously, because it was fragile, and he wanted to keep it with him on the plane instead of checking it with luggage. But he's right; it had almost like a unicorn kind of thing, and it had this big horn or something that was quite long, and it was pointed at the end. And the security were worried that it's something he could have used as a weapon on board because he was going to have it with his personal luggage. So it took a little bit of conversations with the security there and some explanations. And eventually they let Stephen on with it. And I'm happy to say nobody was injured as a result of Stephen's award.
Like I said, Chris, I'm glad we have police officers like Derek helping me, because I don't know if I could have got that past security without help. Because they looked at it twice, and they were humming and hawing. And lucky Chris, Derek, and another of our officers back gave me confidence to let them come on, because they weren't going to let me do it at first, and it took some very persuasion to get them to let me. We had to rework our magic out of this to work.
We did. Our Canadian charm came out, didn't it?
I think we had to give up a pin for that.
Yes, we did. We did give up a couple of little things in return, didn't we?
I forgot about that.
Has any of your sports started back up yet in person?
We got bowling going, Chris, and we got swimming going right now.
Nice. Any word on speed skating?
I didn't realize skating was how you started.
No, not yet. Maybe, hopefully.
There's a club, but very small, I think.
Yeah.
And you know what? For this year, until things get better, you know what? It's just I'll take the year off again. Just maybe next year, I'll go back at it. But for now, it's just let the COVID get our protocol better and more under control, right? Still.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
You are not going to be sitting still though through the winter, are you? You have something that's going to keep you busy, aren't you?
You know, I got a very a smart trainer on my bicycle. I do all year round now, so that's what's going to keep me very active.
Yes, you put on some miles on that, don't you?
Yeah, I've done 177 kilometers in the last 4 days.
Wow. And your bike outside this summer, how many kilometers did you do through the course of the summer?
I did 4,200.
Wow. Good for you. Amazing. That's excellent.
Thank you. That's it. Because like I said, there's not much been going on. So I come home from work and I just basically hop on the bike and go with my friends, come with my friends and go 50 kilometers a night just for something to get some exercise and get some fresh air.
Nice. So through the winter, you're going to be traveling on these virtual ones, and you're going to be all over the place, aren't you?
Yeah,
mountains and deserts.
I was zooming. I was last night, 2 nights. Yesterday, I was in Mount France, I think, or somewhere, or in that way, because it's all virtual. So they didn't tell me which mountain it was, but it was a mountain. Right. So,
wow.
Like I did 60 kilometers, and then I was at 400 feet up. Yeah, it was
good for you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's keeping my legs ready for skating next year.
I'll bet. Well, look out, because I'm sure the next Winter World Games you're going to be right up there in contention to go as an athlete this time again, and I have no doubt that you'll be one of the top ones in Canada. That's for sure.
I'm gonna try, Derek. That's as we all know, it's harder when you get a little older. Sometimes to keep it up is not as easy as it can be, right?
Yes, it is. Speaking of trying, Chris, our athletes.
So as athletes with Special Olympics, we follow an oath. Can you tell us the oath?
Let me win. If I cannot win, let me brave in the attempt.
Can you tell us when you were brave in the attempt?
Mine was probably brave in the attempt. It was 2 actually, when Derek and nobody know, at nationals, I had an injury and I tried to get back up and it just didn't let me. But that's my brave. I was trying to get back up and go, and it just didn't let me go.
No, your body was saying no as much as you wanted to.
But that's what I would say, Chris, is my, brave to go finish. And that was what I was trying to do. I wanted to finish. I only had about 3 more laps to go, and it just unfortunately it happened. I couldn't finish it.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about, right? That's what the oath says, and you're living proof of it right there, Stephen.
Like,
So,
now,
Stephen,
Chris,
it's been great to see you again.
yes,
I enjoyed seeing you a few weeks ago at the Guardians, as wet and cold
Thank
as we were.
yes.
Uh,
Actually, Chris, Derek, it's no lie. I was actually didn't. I was in bloom in my mind. I wasn't even thinking. I didn't realize that was you.
I know I took you a few
You had
minutes.
a cue on, so I didn't notice it.
Yeah, hey, I think you were looking for your mask or something too. You had lost your
Yes.
mask, so you were a
Yes,
little
I did.
distracted. No, that's
Yes,
okay. That's all right. It didn't take you too long, and you figured out
No,
who
I
it
knew.
was. So.
Well, I wasn't thinking. I was, like I said, and I'm like, I didn't expect that was the one person I would see, right? Like,
Of course.
like
Why would some guy from the London area be up in
no,
Orillia
no,
for
no.
us,
I'm
right?
not saying that. I just didn't know. I just like it.
Yeah.
It was
No,
it
it's
was
all
awesome
good. It's
seeing
all
you.
good. It was
It was
great to see
totally
you.
awesome seeing you, Jake. When you know
Yeah.
that, like it.
Yeah, and it's been great having you on here. It's been good reliving a few things about our trip to the UAE there. That was so
Oh yes,
exciting. And
that
if
was
any of our American friends happen to tune into our podcast
yeah.
and remember Stephen, give a shout out to what was your team number, Stephen?
Fabulous Five.
The Fabulous
Five.
Five. So shout out to the
Five.
Fab Five from
Yes.
Abu Dhabi, from Stephen Graham up here in Ontario, Canada. All right, Stephen, thanks very much. It's been great having you. Hopefully we get to talk to you again soon.
Yes. Thank you, Chris and Derek. I appreciate that.
All
You're
right.
welcome.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
All right. And
Bye.
Lauzie and I will be right back after this with our second guest today.
And welcome back to Guardians and Gladiators, folks. As now we have our special guest from Special Olympics Ontario. Welcome to the show, Kirsten.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really
Hi,
happy
Kirsten.
to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. This is excellent. So, Kirsten, you, as Lauzie said there, work with Special Olympics Ontario, right? And I know at one point your role was in relation to the school programs, right? And
Yep.
I think Lauzie was going to ask you something about that. We were discussing the school programs earlier.
When did the school programs get involved with Special Olympics?
Good question. So way back in 2011 and the 2012 school year is when we really started. I think, officially Special Olympics started in schools a few years before that, but really that, fall of 2011 is when we really started to give a big push and started our formal events and stuff like that in schools.
Nice. And the words four corners keep sticking in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first program we started back in 2011 and 2012, that school year. And it was basically a basketball tournament for high school kids across Ontario. We were pretty naive at the time, actually. So we hosted 4 events in all 4 corners of Ontario. And that's why we called it Four Corners. And then it kept growing from there. So like 16 corners and 32 corners didn't really make sense anymore. So we had to rebrand it. We called it School Championships at the end of that.
Right. Nice. And did it stick to just basketball, or did they incorporate other sports in there too?
Yeah, so over the years, we did basketball the first year, then we grew into soccer, and now we actually have 5 sports. So good thing we changed the name. So just before COVID, we had 80 qualifiers for high schools across Ontario. So 80 corners would make no sense anymore, and 5 sports. And each of those sports, we kind of do like a congregated provincial championships for all 5 sports at the same time. It's big multi-sport games in the spring now. Of each year, and we rotate around the province and work with different police forces to host those each spring now.
Right. Yeah, I remember going to a soccer event here when you mentioned getting the police services involved, and we had a soccer event here in London, and going there and welcoming the athletes out and doing it. And I know that has grown almost into like another Special Olympic provincial games, isn't it? Like final leg of the torch run and opening ceremonies and everything, hasn't it?
Yeah, we get the whole kit and caboodle now. So actually that first year when it was still called Four Corners, we hosted the provincials in Waterloo at Laurier. And this is how small we were back then. There was 40 high school athletes that qualified for those games. So I couldn't even rent out like a restaurant for them. because we didn't have enough people. So we ended up renting out this kind of side corner of an Eastside Mario's just off the campus at Laurier, and the chief of police for Waterloo came and he had to stand on a table to give the speech at the opening ceremony / the dinner that we had. Fast forward now, we've got like 1,400 people that come to the games, full opening ceremonies, just like a Special Olympics provincial games that you would know. Oh, like final leg, like you said, Derek. We do everything now kind of almost to the same that we would do the provincial. So they're just about the same size, which is really, really cool, especially for kids in high school to come out and see. They don't get the opportunity like some of their peers might in high school to participate on a school team. So it's really cool for them to be able to travel to provincial games. And then it's really neat for them to learn about Special Olympics and what happens in their community so that when they graduate from high school, they know about Special O and they know how awesome it is so that they get involved at the community level as well.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the chief still stands on tables and
always
dancing and stuff too now. He's
always,
really evolved into a lot.
So back in 2019, I was part of the floor hockey team here in London that went to the provincials games. How involved were you with the youth games that were held there as well?
Yeah, so I was actually the games manager for that, or co-games manager, I guess. I was a co with a police officer from Toronto Police Service. His name is Mike Grubau.
You can say his name. Yeah, give Mike a little shout
Mikey
out.
P, yeah. He was seconded from his job, and I was seconded from my job at Special Olympics. And so we kind of combined together to run those games. They were pretty big. They were, way bigger than anything we'd run in the past. 2,500 athletes at those ones. And floor hockey, like you said, Lauzie, was a really big part of that as well. So we kind of married in the provincial floor hockey games for our community programs to happen because they were supposed to happen at the same time. So we figured why not give them some extra fireworks and come down to these big games. And really cool. So, we didn't really know when we started back in 2011 that we had this really cool program running. It grew every year. But what we didn't really realize was that how special it was. So the more we kind of started telling people about it, especially other Special Olympics staff around the world, we realized that we were really the only ones running something like this. And we started unified sport in schools back in 2016. And so we were the only ones in the world to be offering unified and traditional sport for Special Olympics in high schools. And the only ones hosting a competition that led to something bigger like a provincials in the world. So lots of people started asking if they could come hang out and watch it or send a team to participate. So we figured, why not invite the rest of the world to come and compete? And that's how that 2019 Invitational Youth Games was born. So we started planning it a couple of years beforehand, but that was really the culmination of us being able to show the rest of the world how we do things here in Ontario and how great it was so that they could take it back to their hometown and start to grow programs like this. So hopefully we see more of this kind of popping up around the world, especially in North America.
Yeah, and you're not kidding when you say worldwide. I know a lot of people say that term, and it may be, there was somebody from the States that came. Well, we're talking worldwide because there was a whole contingent from Australia that came up, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And all through the Caribbean, the best way I can sum it up is that, sometimes on your cell phone, when you get those calls that are like really weird numbers, maybe they're from Africa or Bahamas or something like that. So, and you never pick them up because you know that it's, a fake phone call. That year I had to pick up all of those phone numbers that called my cell phone because it was usually a Special Olympics staff member from somewhere in Europe or in Africa calling to see if they could come to our games. So.
Yeah. So it's so great, like, with this being introduced to people in the schools. As you mentioned, a lot of people at that age aren't very familiar with the original Special Olympics programs that take place. So this is a great introduction to them. Now, obviously, in the last year and a half with COVID, a lot of stuff at the schools has become online and different things. Where are we at right now as far as the sports in the schools? Have they started up again? Is it something they're about to do?
Yeah, so we're completely virtual still at this point, as we were last year. And to be honest, we actually had some really good involvement while we were virtual. last year and this year. We got a lot of people that are really hungry to participate. And the bonus in schools is that everyone has to be set up virtually. So, in some of our community programs for Special Olympics, we found that some athletes had a harder time connecting. Maybe they didn't have internet at home or a device or something like that. It was mandated in Ontario that every single student in an Ontario school was able to get access to the internet and a device that they could connect on. So we knew that everyone could connect in. So we ran a large number of programs last year, mostly like single day soccer or basketball events, but we're still seeing 800, 900 kids sign up for those basketball events, which was really neat to run on Zoom. It was a little bit of, a learning curve for us to have that many people coming on, but it was really cool. And then on top of that, we actually talked to a lot of special education teachers in the province, and usually special education programs have a really hard time getting gym time in their school, time to practice for our events and get their team ready to go. But during COVID, special education classes were actually allowed to be in school the whole time, where the rest of the school was virtual.
Right.
Because the kids had high needs and they needed to be with their teachers. So the teachers loved it because they could be in the gym whenever they wanted to. And so
Right.
our participation rates were really high. Having said that, now I think people are just really excited to see everyone again in person. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that maybe in the spring we're able to run some in-person stuff, but we're still doing everything virtual at the moment.
Right. Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, that's way more than a lot of people have been able to do. So that's excellent.
So now we understand that you started the school program, you made it big as it is now. What is your new role now?
Well,
that
thanks,
you're moved
Lauzie.
up?
Yeah, so officially now I'm the Director of Programs for Special Olympics Ontario. And so now I have the really fun job of overseeing all of our sports and programming that happens at Special O. So anything from coach development, community programs, major games in sport, our healthy athletes, and then of course still our school programs. So while I'm not directly in charge of just schools and youth anymore, I still am really closely tied with that team. And one of our awesome staff, his name's Chris, has taken over my role in the schools position.
Nice. That sounds exciting. That's congratulations. That sounds like a nice move
Yeah.
there.
Thank you.
Do you get to boss Cody around yet? Is that something you?
Well, now Cody and I are both directors, so we worked really well together before, but now we're forced to work together 5 days of the week, I think. So lucky for us, we both really
Poor
enjoy
guy.
a game of golf, so we get to go out and play golf a little bit and talk work all the time.
Well, there's good points and bad points to every
Yeah.
promotion, isn't there?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, that's great. Kirsten, we really appreciate you taking the time. It's great information. We're so excited about the school program in just a few short years, how it's grown dramatically from Four Corners right up to where we are now with international youth games. It's amazing how much has been accomplished in such a short period of time. And it's exciting to think about where we're going to be 10 years from now.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great to have you on. And good luck with
Awesome.
the new role. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thanks,
you
boys.
for coming.
All right. Thanks. All right. We are going to be right back, Lauzie and I, after this to wrap up.
Welcome back to Guardians and Gladiators. Wow, wasn't that a fantastic show with two very special guests? One an athlete of Stephen Graham, and another our special guest from Toronto and Bobbie.
It was great. That was a fun road trip. I mean, road trips are always great, but when you get to speak to two people like that, that was excellent. Really enjoyed that.
At least this road trip we stayed warm in our comfort of our own homes.
Exactly. It's a road trip without leaving home, right? The best kind. Yeah, it was nice to catch up with Stephen. We had a great experience when we were in Abu Dhabi. It was such an honor and a privilege to be selected to go there. And Stephen represented Special Olympics Ontario and Torchwood Ontario and all of Canada, really. He was the only athlete from Canada that was there and was just an incredible ambassador. His speeches were amazing. He had this big smile. You saw his smile tonight. I know our listeners can't see it, but Stephen's smile, you just can't miss it. It just lights up the room, and we got to see it the whole time we were there. And I know, speaking with athletes from all over the world that were there, or sorry, not athletes, law enforcement members, everybody commented on how great Stephen was and what a great job he did representing us. So it was nice to have Stephen on. Really great guy and a big part of Special Olympics up in the Orillia area.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm already looking forward to next week. I'm sure you are too. We have some great guests lined up. We'll keep you in suspense a little bit, but what I can tell you is that next week, you think this road trip was good? We're going international next week.
Oh, I can't wait.
There's a tease for you. International next week on Guardians and Gladiators. So thanks again for joining us. We look forward to speaking with you next week.
Until next week, have a good week, folks.